My phone buzzed at 9 on a Tuesday morning while I was reviewing code at my desk. Dad's name lit up the screen. I answered with a knot already forming in my stomach. Within 30 seconds, he was yelling that I had to attend Brooke's destination wedding in 2 weeks. No excuses. When I mentioned my work schedule, he exploded. "Cut your tuition immediately if you don't show up," he threatened. Mom's voice joined in on speaker, guilting me about family loyalty. "Brooke sacrificed so much for us," they said. The call ended with an ultimatum ringing in my ears. I set my phone down and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. The familiar ache of being second best settled into my chest like an old friend I never wanted but couldn't escape. Brooke, my younger sister by 3 years. The golden child. The favorite. The one who could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Growing up, the difference in how they treated us was so obvious it became a running joke among my high school friends. When Brooke turned 16, Dad bought her a brand new Honda Civic with a bow on top. When I turned 16, I got a card with $50 inside and permission to apply for a job at the mall so I could save up for my own car. Brooke went to a private liberal arts college in New England. Fully paid, no questions asked. I worked 3 jobs to get through state school, took out loans for what my partial academic scholarship didn't cover, and ate ramen most nights to save money. After graduation, Brooke got a funded gap year in Europe to find herself. I moved into a cramped apartment with 2 roommates and started job hunting immediately because my loan payments were already looming. Every family gathering became a stage for my parents to sing Brooke's praises while I faded into the background. Look at Brooke's Instagram, so many followers. Brooke got promoted to social media coordinator. Brooke is dating Brandon. Such a catch. His family owns car dealerships. 5 years ago, I made the best decision of my life. I moved to Seattle, put 3,000 miles between myself and the constant comparisons, the casual cruelty, the death by 1,000 cuts that came from being the disappointment daughter. I told my family I got accepted into a graduate program at the University of Washington. They barely reacted. Of course, Selena would still be in school, struggling to make something of herself, while Brooke was out there living her best life. Except I never enrolled in graduate school. That was a lie I let them believe, because the truth was something I wanted to keep entirely for myself. The truth was this. I parlayed my computer science degree into a software engineering position at a major tech company in Seattle. I started as a junior engineer, making $65,000 a year, which felt like a fortune after years of scraping by. But I didn't stop there. I worked relentlessly. I took on the projects nobody else wanted. I learned new programming languages on weekends. I networked at industry events. I made myself indispensable. Within 2 years, I was promoted to mid-level engineer. Within 4 years, senior engineer. My current salary is $175,000 annually, plus stock options worth approximately another $60,000. I own my 1-bedroom condo in Capitol Hill outright. I paid it off in 3 years by living below my means and investing aggressively. I drive a Tesla Model 3 that I bought with cash. My student loans, which had terrified me when I graduated, were paid off completely within 2 years of landing my first real job. I have $243,000 in savings, another $112,000 in investment accounts, a retirement fund that's growing faster than I ever dreamed possible, and my family has no idea. Why did I keep it secret? The question haunted me sometimes in quiet moments. Part of it was protection. If they knew I had money, they would ask for it. Dad would want an investment in some scheme. Mom would need help with something. Brooke would expect me to fund her lifestyle upgrades. I had worked too hard to let them drain what I built. But the deeper reason, the one I barely admitted to myself, was that I didn't want them to minimize my success the way they minimized everything else about me. If I told them I was making 6 figures, they would find a way to make it about Brooke. Compare my tech job to Brooke's creative career. Point out that money isn't everything. Remind me that Brooke was getting married to wealthy Brandon while I was still single. So I let them believe I was struggling through grad school, barely getting by, still the failure daughter who couldn't quite get her life together. Until now. Until this phone call, this demand, this threat to cut off tuition money I hadn't needed in 3 years. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Curiosity. A strange, bubbling anticipation. What would they do when they found out the truth? How would their faces look when they realized the daughter they dismissed had been wildly successful while they weren't paying attention? I opened my email and booked a flight to San Francisco for the following week. The wedding was at a luxury resort in Napa Valley. 1 week of pre-wedding celebrations. Because, of course, Brooke couldn't have just a simple ceremony, I booked my hotel room at the resort. My credit card didn't even flinch at the $700 nightly rate. I was going to this wedding, but not as the struggling grad student they thought I was. I was going as myself, and I was going to let them see exactly who I had become, whether they were ready for it or not. The Napa Valley Resort was exactly the kind of place Brooke would choose. Rolling vineyard views, infinity pools, a spa that probably cost more per treatment than I used to spend on groceries in a month back in my struggling days. I pulled up in my rental car, a modest sedan because I didn't need to announce anything yet, and checked in at the ornate front desk. The clerk smiled professionally and handed me my key card. Room 214. I didn't think much of it until I walked down the hallway of the family wing and realized everyone else had suites. Brooke had the sprawling honeymoon suite at the end of the hall. My parents had a 2-bedroom suite. Even the bridesmaids had connecting rooms with living areas. I had what amounted to a glorified closet, with a bed and a tiny bathroom. The message was clear. Even here, even at her wedding, I was an afterthought. I dropped my bag and headed down to the welcome dinner. The private dining room overlooked the vineyards, golden in the late afternoon Sunday. Long tables were set with cream linens and elaborate floral centerpieces. I counted at least 40 people already there, glasses of wine in hand, laughing and chatting. Brooke stood in the center of it all, like a bride-shaped sun, and everyone else orbited around her. She wore a white rehearsal dress that probably cost more than a month of my old rent. When she saw me, she waved distractedly, then immediately turned back to the cluster of bridesmaids surrounding her. Mom found me first. She pulled me into a quick hug that felt obligatory. "You made it," she said, and I couldn't tell if she was pleased or surprised. She looked me up and down, taking in my simple black dress from Nordstrom. "That's what you're wearing?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral, in a way that communicated everything. "It's the welcome dinner, not the actual wedding," I replied evenly. She pursed her lips. "Well, just make sure you dress appropriately for the real events. This is important for Brooke. We don't want anything to overshadow her special week." "I wouldn't dream of it," I said. Dad appeared with a glass of scotch already in hand. "Selena," he boomed, too loud. "You actually showed up. Guess you decided you couldn't afford to lose that tuition money after all, huh?" Several people nearby turned to look. I felt my face heat but kept my expression calm. "I wouldn't miss Brooke's wedding," I said simply. He clapped me on the shoulder hard enough to sting. "That's my girl. Family first. Even if you're still figuring out your life, at least you know what matters." The dinner was excruciating. I was seated at the far end of the table, wedged between a distant cousin I hadn't seen in 10 years and one of Brandon's college friends who spent the entire meal talking about cryptocurrency. Brooke held court at the head of the table, showing off her ring, talking about the $15,000 dress she was wearing for the ceremony, describing the honeymoon Brandon had planned in Bora Bora. My parents watched her with undisguised adoration. Dad kept raising his glass in toasts. Mom took approximately 600 photos. Brandon sat beside Brooke, smiling, but I noticed something off about him. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He drank more than he ate. Every time Brooke grabbed his hand or kissed his cheek, he seemed to flinch slightly before remembering to lean into it. After dinner, Mom pulled me aside in the hallway. "Tomorrow you're helping with setup," she informed me, not asked. Brooke needs someone to pick up the special champagne from a vineyard about 20 miles from here, and the florist needs help transporting some last-minute arrangements. I thought she had a wedding planner for this, I said. Mom's expression hardened. The planner is handling the important things. This is family helping family. You can spare a few hours, can't you? It's not like you have a demanding job or anything. The dismissal in her voice was so casual, it almost didn't sting anymore. Almost. Sure, I said. Text me the details. That night, I lay in my tiny room and stared at the ceiling. I could hear laughter and music from somewhere in the resort. Probably Brooke and her bridesmaids having a champagne toast in her massive suite. I wondered if this trip was a mistake. I could leave right now, book a flight home, send a generous gift, and be done with it. But something kept me here. I wanted to see how this played out. Call it curiosity. Call it a stubborn need to witness what I had spent 5 years avoiding. The next day unfolded exactly as Mom predicted. I spent the morning driving to 3 different vineyards, picking up cases of specific champagne Brooke had decided she absolutely needed. I hauled flower arrangements from the florist's van to the ceremony site. I confirmed details with the string quartet. I was, as Brooke had apparently told her bridesmaids within my earshot, basically the help. At least she's useful for something, Brooke had laughed. It's nice having a sister who doesn't have a real job to get back to. She can just run our errands. Her bridesmaids had giggled. I had kept my face neutral and carried another box of centerpieces to the reception hall. That evening, there was a casual cocktail hour by the pool. I changed into a sundress and sandals and went downstairs, not because I wanted to, but because not showing up would create drama I didn't have the energy for. Brandon was at the bar when I arrived. He looked exhausted despite the early hour. We hadn't actually spoken much since I arrived. When I approached to order a drink, he turned and seemed to really see me for the first time. "Selena, right?" he said. "Brooke's sister. The one in grad school in Seattle?" "That's me," I said, because correcting him felt like more trouble than it was worth. "What are you studying?" he asked, and it seemed like genuine interest, which was jarring. "Computer science?" I said, keeping it vague. He nodded, took a long drink of what looked like bourbon. "That's cool. Practical. Important field." We stood there in awkward silence for a moment. Then his phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his whole body tensed. He excused himself abruptly and walked quickly toward the garden area, phone already to his ear. I sipped my wine and watched him go. Something was definitely wrong there. A voice beside me said, "He's been like that all week." I turned to find a guy about my age, maybe slightly younger, with friendly eyes and a concerned expression. He extended his hand. "Tyler, I'm Brandon's younger brother. You're Selena?" I shook his hand. "That's me, the errand-running sister." He laughed, but it was sympathetic. "I saw you hauling those flower boxes earlier. My mom has me doing similar grunt work. Little siblings unite, right?" Something about him was disarming. We talked for a while about nothing important. He was a high school teacher in Sacramento, coached basketball, seemed genuinely kind. Eventually, the conversation drifted back to Brandon. "I'm surprised he's going through with this," Tyler said quietly, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. He seemed to catch himself. "Sorry, that's probably inappropriate." "Why do you say that?" I asked, keeping my voice equally low. Tyler hesitated. He looked like he was debating how much to share. "Family pressure," he finally said. "Brandon's great, but he's never been good at standing up to our parents. They have very specific ideas about who he should marry, what kind of family she should come from, the whole social status thing." "And Brooke fits that," I said. Tyler shrugged uncomfortably. "I shouldn't have said anything. Forget it. I'm sure it'll be fine." But the seed was planted. I watched Brandon more carefully the rest of the evening. Every time someone congratulated him, his smile was strained. Every time Brooke talked about their future, he looked like he wanted to disappear. Late that night, I couldn't sleep. Too much wine, too many thoughts swirling. I pulled on a sweatshirt and went down to the resort terrace, hoping fresh air might help. The terrace was empty, overlooking the dark shapes of vineyards under a half moon. I leaned against the railing and breathed in the cool night air. That's when I heard his voice, drifting up from the garden below. I can't do this. I don't know if I can actually do this. I froze, recognizing Brandon's voice immediately. I should have announced myself, should have left, but I didn't. I stayed still and listened. He was quiet for a moment, clearly on the phone. Then, I still have feelings for you. You know I do. But my parents pushed this wedding so hard. They need the social connections for Dad's business expansion. Brooke's family has the right reputation, the right background. If I back out now, my dad will lose it. He's been planning this merger for months. Another pause. My heart was pounding. I know you're hurt. I know I hurt you. But please, just wait until after the wedding. We'll figure something out. I promise. Just give me a little more time. He listened to whoever was on the other end, and even from where I stood, I could hear the pain in his silence. I love you too, he finally whispered. I never stopped. He ended the call. I heard him take a shaky breath, maybe crying, then footsteps as he walked back toward the main building. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at the dark vineyards, my mind racing. Brandon was in love with someone else. He was marrying Brooke under family pressure for business reasons, and whoever he was in love with was still in the picture. This wedding was a disaster waiting to happen, and I was one of the only people who knew it. I barely slept that night. Brandon's words kept echoing in my head. I love you too. I never stopped. The raw pain in his voice was unmistakable. He was about to marry my sister while in love with someone else, and nobody seemed to know or care except me. By morning, I had decided I had to tell Brooke. I didn't particularly like her. Our relationship had been strained by years of favoritism and casual cruelty, but this was serious. She deserved to know before she married someone who didn't actually love her. I found Brooke at breakfast, surrounded by her bridesmaids as usual, all of them laughing over mimosas and fruit parfait. I waited until there was a natural break in conversation, then asked if I could talk to her privately. She looked annoyed. Can it wait? We're planning the bachelorette spa day. It's important, I said. She sighed dramatically, but followed me to a quiet corner of the dining room. What is it, Selena? Make it quick. I took a breath. It's about Brandon. I think you should postpone the wedding. I think there are things you don't know about him. Her expression went from annoyed to angry in half a second. Excuse me? I overheard him on the phone last night. He was talking to someone, a woman, telling her he still has feelings for her. That this wedding is happening because of family pressure. Brooke, I don't think he actually wants to marry you. Her face flushed red. You're unbelievable. You're so jealous that you would make up lies to try to ruin my wedding? I'm not making this up. I heard him. He said he loves someone else, that his parents need this marriage for business reasons. You deserve better than someone who doesn't love you. Brooke stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. You have always been jealous of me. Your whole life, you've been the failure, and I've been the successful one. You can't stand that I'm getting married to an amazing man while you're still alone and struggling. So you invent this ridiculous story to try to sabotage me. I'm trying to help you, I said, keeping my voice steady. I know we're not close, but you're my sister. I don't want you to make a huge mistake. The only mistake here is you, Brooke hissed. I'm telling Mom and Dad about this. You're done. They're going to cut you off completely for trying to destroy my happiness. She stormed away before I could respond. I stood there feeling like I had just touched a live wire. Part of me regretted saying anything, but the larger part knew I had at least tried. What she did with the information was her choice. The rest of the morning was tense. I avoided the main group, took a long walk through the vineyards, tried to settle my nerves. I knew the confrontation with my parents was coming. Brooke would tell them. I was spreading lies. They would take her side. They always took her side. The afternoon brought the rehearsal dinner prep. I was assigned more tasks, which I completed mechanically. Around 4, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Dad, Mom, and Brooke standing there. Dad's face was purple with rage. Mom looked disappointed. Brooke looked triumphant. "Inside?" Dad barked. "Now." I let them in. My tiny room felt even smaller with all 4 of us crammed inside. "Brooke told us what you said," Mom started, her voice tight. "How dare you try to ruin your sister's wedding with lies and jealousy?" "I wasn't lying," I said quietly. "I heard Brandon on the phone. He's in love with someone else. This wedding is happening for the wrong reasons." "That's enough," Dad roared. "I have had it with your attitude. You have been nothing but a burden on this family. We paid for your education. We supported you when you couldn't get your life together, and this is how you repay us? By trying to sabotage your sister's happiness?" "You didn't pay for my education," I said, before I could stop myself. "I paid for it, with loans and scholarships and 3 jobs. Because you weren't good enough for better schools," Brooke interjected. "I got into great schools because I actually applied myself." Dad ignored her. "That's it, Selena. You're cut off. No more tuition money. You're on your own. And you're uninvited from the wedding tomorrow. I want you out of this resort tonight. Get your things and leave." Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was years of being treated like I was less than. Maybe it was the sheer injustice of being punished for trying to help. Maybe it was just time. I looked at all 3 of them and said 5 words that changed everything. "I don't need your money." Dad laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "What are you going to do? Drop out and work at McDonald's? You can't survive without our help." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen to show them. My savings account balance stared back $243,612.18. The room went silent. Dad's laughter died. Mom's mouth fell open. Brooke looked confused. "What is this?" Dad finally said. I switched to my checking account. $38,422. Then to my investment account summary. $112,900. "I never went to graduate school," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I haven't needed your money for 3 years. I graduated top of my class from state school with a computer science degree. I moved to Seattle and got hired as a software engineer. I'm now a senior engineer at a major tech company. I make $175,000 a year, plus stock options worth about another $60,000 annually." Mom gasped. Dad looked like he had been slapped. "I paid off all my student loans in 2 years. I've been saving and investing aggressively. I own my condo in Seattle outright. I drive a Tesla Model 3. I just paid $6,000 cash for the dress I bought for tomorrow's wedding, the wedding I won't be attending since you just uninvited me." "Why didn't you tell us?" Dad stammered. "Because you never asked," I said, and the words came out harder than I intended. "You never cared. You were too busy worshiping Brooke and treating me like a disappointment. I kept quiet because I didn't want you demanding money or trying to take credit for my success. I built this life myself, with no help from you." Brooke found her voice shrill and angry. "This is typical of you, making everything about yourself on my wedding week. You just can't let me have this one thing." I turned to face her directly. "I tried to warn you about Brandon. I was trying to help you, to protect you from making a terrible mistake. But since you don't want my help, I'll leave you with this. Your fiancé is still in love with his ex-girlfriend. Her name is Julia. She works at the country club where you're having your rehearsal dinner tonight. She's pregnant with his baby. He told her last night he would figure it out after your wedding. But go ahead. Marry him. I'm sure it'll be wonderful." "You're lying," Brooke whispered, but her voice wavered. "Believe what you want," I said. "I'm done caring what any of you think of me." I moved toward the door. Dad grabbed my arm. "You're lying. You're jealous. And you're lying. I shook him off, harder than necessary. He stumbled back slightly. Believe what you want, I repeated. I'm going to pack my things and find another hotel. Enjoy your rehearsal dinner. I opened the door and walked out, leaving them standing in my tiny room, stunned into silence. Back in my room, I sat on the bed and felt the adrenaline drain out of me, leaving me shaky. I had just blown up my relationship with my family. I had revealed secrets I had kept for years. I had told Brooke the truth about Brandon and knew she probably wouldn't believe me until it was too late. I pulled out my laptop and started searching for other hotels in the area. Then I stopped. I had paid for this room. I had traveled here. And despite everything, some morbid part of me wanted to see how this played out. I booked a flight home for tomorrow afternoon, after the wedding ceremony was scheduled to happen. I would stay tonight, avoid the rehearsal dinner, and leave before the fireworks really started. Except the fireworks started sooner than I expected. At 11 that night, there was frantic pounding on my door. I opened it to find Tyler, Brandon's brother, looking panicked. "You need to come quick," he said breathlessly. Brooke just confronted Brandon about Julia. He admitted everything. The wedding's imploding. Your parents are having a meltdown. Brandon's parents are threatening to sue for the costs they covered. It's absolute chaos. I stood there for a moment, processing. Then, I made a choice. Not out of revenge. Not out of satisfaction. But because despite everything, Brooke was still my sister, and she was about to go through the worst night of her life. "Take me there," I said. Tyler led me down the hallway at a near run. Even before we reached the family wing, I could hear the shouting. Multiple voices overlapping, accusations and denials, and crying all mixing into a cacophony of disaster. The door to Brooke's suite was open. Inside was a scene of complete chaos. Brooke sat on the white couch, still in her rehearsal dinner dress, mascara streaking down her face in black rivers. She was sobbing so hard her whole body shook. Mom sat next to her, one arm around her shoulders, looking shell-shocked. Dad paced near the window, his face red, barking into his phone at someone. Brandon stood near the door, tears streaming down his own face, his hair disheveled, like he had been running his hands through it repeatedly. His parents, a severe-looking couple in expensive clothes, stood on the opposite side of the room, his mother's face a mask of cold fury, his father scrolling through his phone with angry jabs of his finger. Two of Brooke's bridesmaids huddled in the corner, whispering to each other with wide eyes. The wedding planner, a thin woman with a clipboard, looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. When I walked in, everyone turned to look at me. The room fell silent for one horrible moment. Then Brooke let out a wail that sounded like an animal in pain. "You were right. You were right. And I called you a liar." She dissolved into fresh sobs. Mom pulled her closer, glaring at me like somehow this was my fault for knowing about it. Dad ended his phone call and crossed to me. His anger seemed to have burned out, leaving only exhaustion. "Selena," he said heavily, "we need your help." "Now you need my help," I said, and I couldn't keep the bitterness out of my voice. "Please," Mom said. "We don't know what to do. We have 200 guests showing up tomorrow. We have vendors, deposits. The ceremony is supposed to be at 4 in the afternoon. We need to cancel everything, notify people. We're lost." Brandon spoke up, his voice hoarse. "It's all my fault. I should have been honest from the beginning. I should have called this off months ago. I'm so sorry, Brooke. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this," Brandon's father said coldly. "Do you have any idea how much money we've put into this wedding? The venue, the catering, the flowers? We're not covering costs for a wedding that isn't happening." "We had an agreement," Dad shot back. "Your family was paying for half." "That agreement was contingent on an actual wedding," Brandon's mother said icily. "Since your daughter is no longer marrying our son, we're withdrawing our financial contribution. You'll need to handle the cancellations and any associated costs yourselves." "You can't do that," Dad protested. "Watch us," Brandon's father said. He looked at Brandon with disgust. "Let's go. We're done here." "Dad," Brandon said weakly. His father ignored him. His mother followed him toward the door. Brandon stood there, torn, then looked at Brooke one more time. "I really am sorry," he whispered. "Get out!" Brooke screamed suddenly. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" Brandon flinched and fled. Tyler, who had been standing quietly beside me, gave me an apologetic look and followed his family out. The door closed. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad sank into a chair and put his head in his hands. "We're ruined. The deposits alone are going to bankrupt us. And the humiliation. What are we going to tell people?" Mom was still holding Brooke, who had gone from wailing to quiet, hiccuping sobs. "Selena," Mom said again, "please, help us fix this." I looked at Brooke. Even now, even devastated and humiliated, I saw no apology in her eyes for how she had treated me, just self-pity and pain. But I thought about who I wanted to be. Not the person who gloated. Not the person who said "I told you so." Not the person who walked away and let them drown. I sat down and opened my laptop. Over the next 6 hours, I worked. I pulled up the contracts with every vendor. I read through cancellation policies. I drafted emails and made phone calls. The wedding planner, grateful for someone taking charge, helped me compile the full list of what needed to be handled. I contacted the venue coordinator and negotiated a partial refund on the ceremony site, since we were giving more than 24 hours notice. I called the caterer and worked out a deal where the already prepared food for tomorrow's reception would be donated to a local homeless shelter, which gave us a tax write-off that offset some of the loss. I contacted the florist, the photographer, the string quartet, the DJ. Some were willing to refund deposits. Others were not. I kept meticulous notes. I drafted an elegant message to send to all 200 guests. Due to unforeseen family circumstances, the wedding of Brooke Anderson and Brandon Mitchell has been postponed indefinitely. We apologize for any inconvenience and appreciate your understanding during this difficult time. Please know that your presence and support mean the world to our family. I coordinated with the resort to adjust everyone's room bookings, getting refunds for those who wanted to leave early, extending stays for family who needed time to regroup. I even arranged for the resort to offer discounted spa services to the bridesmaids, a small gesture to salvage something from the weekend. Mom and Dad watched me work with something like awe. The wedding planner left around 2 in the morning, thanking me profusely. Brooke had finally cried herself into an exhausted sleep on the couch, covered with a blanket Mom had draped over her. By the time the sun started to rise over the vineyards, casting everything in soft gold light, I had managed to save my parents approximately $47,000 in sunk costs through refunds, negotiations, and creative solutions. The total loss was still significant, around $30,000, but it was far less than the catastrophic financial ruin Dad had been facing. I closed my laptop and rubbed my eyes. Dad sat across from me, looking like he had aged 10 years overnight. "You really are remarkable," he said quietly. "I never saw it. I never looked." "No," I said. "You didn't." Mom came over and sat next to him. She had been crying on and off all night. "Selena, I owe you an apology. We owe you so many apologies. We were terrible parents to you. We played favorites. We dismissed you. We made you feel like you weren't good enough, when the truth is, you're extraordinary." I didn't know what to say to that, so I said nothing. "Why did you help us?" Dad asked. "After everything we said to you, after how we treated you, why didn't you just leave?" "Because you're my family," I said simply. "And because being cruel back wouldn't make me feel better. It would just make me like you used to be." The words hung in the air. Dad flinched like I had slapped him. "Used to be?" Mom asked softly. "I'm hoping this changes things," I said. "I'm hoping you learn from this. Because if you don't, if you go back to the same patterns, then I'm done. I'll walk away, and you'll never hear from me again. But if you're willing to actually see me, to treat me with respect, to be real family, instead of whatever dysfunctional thing we've been, then maybe we can build something better. We will, Dad said, and his voice broke. I promise you, Selena. We will. A sound from the couch made us all turn. Brooke was awake, sitting up, the blanket pooled around her waist. Her face was swollen from crying, her hair a mess, her dress wrinkled. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. She looked at me for a long moment. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she said, "Why are you helping me? I was awful to you." I met her eyes. Because you're my sister, and because I'm not you. It was harsh, but it was true. Brooke's face crumpled, and for a second I thought she would start crying again. Instead, she took a shaky breath. "You were right about everything," she whispered. Brandon admitted it all. He's been seeing Julia the whole time we've been engaged. She's 3 months pregnant. His parents knew and told him to marry me anyway, because my family had the right social connections for their business expansion. I was just a means to an end. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. "I'm sorry too," Brooke said. "For everything. For how I treated you growing up. For taking advantage of Mom and Dad's favoritism. For being cruel to you this week. For not believing you when you tried to warn me. I've been a terrible sister." The apology hung in the air between us. It wasn't enough to erase years of pain, but it was a start. "Yes," I said. "You have been." She nodded, accepting it. "Can we try again? Can we try to actually be sisters?" "Maybe," I said. "If you mean it, if you actually change." "I do," she said. "I will." The sun was fully up now, flooding the room with morning light. We sat there, all of us exhausted. All of us changed in ways we were only beginning to understand. There was a soft knock at the door. Mom opened it to find Tyler standing there, looking hesitant. "I just wanted to check if everyone was okay," he said. "I've been worried." "Come in," I said. He stepped inside and took in the scene. His eyes found mine and held. "I'm sorry about my family," he said. "About my brother. About all of this." "Not your fault," I said. He crossed to me. "Can I talk to you for a minute? Outside?" I followed him out to the terrace. The same terrace where I had stood 2 nights ago and overheard Brandon's phone call. It felt like a lifetime ago. "I wanted to give you my number," Tyler said. "I know this whole weekend has been a disaster, but meeting you was the best part of it. I'd like to stay in touch, if that's okay." I looked at him, this kind man who had shown me more genuine warmth in 2 days than my family had in years. "I'd like that," I said. We exchanged numbers. He smiled at me, and for the first time all week, I felt something like hope. The aftermath of that night rippled through the following weeks like stones thrown into still water. I flew back to Seattle the next afternoon as planned, leaving my family to pick up the remaining pieces. But something fundamental had shifted. The lies that had propped up our family dynamics for so long had collapsed, and in their place, something more honest was trying to grow. Dad called me 3 days after I got home. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Selena," he said, and his voice was different, smaller, uncertain. I wanted to apologize again, properly this time. Not in the middle of a crisis, but when I've had time to really think about what I've done. "I'm listening," I said. He took a shaky breath. "I've been thinking about the last 25 years, about how I raised you and your sister. And I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of the father I was to you. I played favorites in a way that was cruel and unfair. I dismissed your achievements. I never asked about your life. I made you feel like you had to hide your success from us because we had created an environment where you couldn't trust us to celebrate it." His voice broke slightly. "I told myself I was preparing you for a tough world by being hard on you, But the truth is, I was threatened by you. You were always smarter than me, more driven, more capable, and instead of being proud, I felt inadequate. So I tore you down to make myself feel better, and that's unforgivable. I sat on my couch in my Seattle condo, looking out at the city skyline, and felt tears prick my eyes. It's going to take time, I said quietly. You can't fix 25 years of damage with one apology. I know, he said, but I want to try. I want to be the father you deserved all along. Will you give me that chance? Maybe, I said. We'll see. It was the most honest conversation we had ever had. Mom called the next week. She cried through most of it, apologizing for the favoritism, for the casual cruelty, for making me feel invisible in my own family. She admitted she had projected her own insecurities onto me, had lived vicariously through Brooke's social success because she felt like she had never achieved it herself. I forgave you both, I told her. But forgiveness doesn't mean everything goes back to normal. We have to build something new, something healthier. I understand, she said. We'll do whatever it takes. Brooke started texting me regularly. At first it was apologies, then updates on her life. She had moved back in with our parents temporarily, was seeing a therapist twice a week, had quit her social media coordinator job. I realized that job was making me miserable, she texted one afternoon. I was only doing it because it looked good on Instagram. I'm going back to school for a counseling degree. I actually want to help people who are going through what I went through. I'm proud of you, I texted back, and meant it. She sent back a heart emoji. Then, thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. The weeks turned into a month, then 2. My family had started video call therapy sessions together, and they asked if I would join. I agreed, cautiously. The therapist, a calm woman in her 50s named Dr. Patricia Chen, helped us navigate conversations we had never had before. Selena, Dr. Chen said during one session, I want you to tell your family how their treatment made you feel. Not what they did wrong, but how it impacted you emotionally. I looked at their faces on my screen. Mom, Dad, and Brooke, all watching me with new attentiveness. It made me feel worthless, I said, and my voice shook. It made me feel like nothing I did would ever be good enough, like I was fundamentally flawed in some way I couldn't fix. I achieved things I should have been proud of, and instead I hid them because I was afraid you would find a way to diminish them. I built a successful life, and it felt hollow because the people who were supposed to love me most couldn't see me at all. Mom was crying. Dad's jaw was clenched like he was fighting emotion. Brooke looked devastated. That must have been incredibly painful, Dr. Chen said gently. How does it feel to say that out loud? Freeing, I said, and terrifying. The therapy sessions continued. Slowly, carefully, we started to rebuild. Not the broken thing we had been, but something new, something that acknowledged the damage while working toward healing. My parents visited Seattle in late October, 2 months after the wedding disaster. It was their first time seeing my condo, my life, the world I had built. I picked them up from the airport in my Tesla, and Dad stared at it like he couldn't quite believe it was real. This is yours, he asked. Bought it with cash 2 years ago, I said. I showed them my condo, the 1-bedroom in Capitol Hill, with exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Mom walked around touching things gently, looking at my bookshelves, my art, my life. It's beautiful, she said. You've built something really beautiful. We went to dinner at a nice restaurant in Pike Place Market. I ordered wine without looking at the price. We talked about my job, and for the first time, they asked real questions. What kind of projects did I work on? What was my team like? What were my career goals? Dad listened to me explain a complex algorithm I had developed and actually seemed interested. That's incredible, Selena, he said. I don't understand half of it, but I can tell it's important work. I'm proud of you. The words I had waited my whole life to hear. They should have felt triumphant. Instead, they felt sad, like mourning for the relationship we could have had all along. But they also felt like a beginning. On their last night in Seattle, Dad asked if we could talk privately. We sat on my small balcony, the city lights spread out below us. "I wrote you something," he said, pulling out a folded piece of paper. "I've been working on it in therapy. Dr. Chen thought it might help." He handed me the letter. It was 3 pages, handwritten, his messy scrawl covering the lines. I read it by the light from inside. He detailed every memory he had of failing me. The times he forgot my school performances because he was at Brooke's events. The achievements he dismissed. The hurtful comparisons. The money he gave freely to Brooke while making me beg for help. He acknowledged his role in making me feel like I had to hide my success. He admitted he had been a bad father in the ways that mattered most. And then he wrote about who I had become despite him, not because of him. He wrote about seeing my condo and realizing I had built a life more successful than he had ever achieved. He wrote about the shame he felt, knowing he had almost destroyed our relationship through his own insecurity and cruelty. The letter ended with a promise. "I can't change the past, but I can commit to being better. You deserved a father who celebrated you, who supported you, who saw you. I want to be that father now, even if it's late. Even if you never fully forgive me, I want to try." I folded the letter carefully, looked out at the city I had claimed as my own. "Thank you," I said. "This means something." He nodded, wiping at his eyes. "I love you, Selena. I should have said it more. I should have shown it better. But I do." "I love you too," I said. "And we're going to figure this out. It won't be perfect, but we'll try." He hugged me then, and I let him, and it felt like something breaking and something healing at the same time. After they left, Brooke called. She had been doing well, she said. Therapy was helping. She had enrolled in a graduate program for counseling psychology, was genuinely excited about it. She had started dating someone new, taking it slow, being honest about her needs and boundaries. "I'm learning how to be a person instead of a performance," she said. "It's harder than I thought it would be." "I'm proud of you," I told her. There was a pause. Then, "Selena, do you think we can ever be real sisters? Like, actually close?" "I think we're trying," I said. "That's more than we've ever done before." "I'll take it," she said. And then there was Tyler. We had been texting constantly since the wedding implosion. He visited Seattle in November, and we spent a weekend exploring the city, talking about everything and nothing. He was easy to be with, uncomplicated in a way that felt revolutionary after my family's drama. On our 3rd date, walking along the waterfront at sunset, he stopped and turned to me. "I know this started in the middle of a disaster," he said, "but I really like you. I think you're extraordinary, and I want to see where this goes, if you do." "I do," I said. He kissed me, and it felt like another new beginning. By December, my life had transformed in ways I couldn't have predicted. My family was in therapy, actively working on their issues. Brooke and I talked regularly, building a real relationship for the first time. My parents treated me with respect and genuine interest. Tyler and I were navigating a long-distance relationship that felt surprisingly solid. I had gone to that wedding expecting disaster. What I got instead was the catalyst that finally forced my family to see me, to see themselves, to change. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to that morning after the wedding imploded, when everything was still raw and broken and we didn't know yet if healing was possible. The sun was fully up, flooding Brooke's suite with unforgiving light that showed every tear stain, every rumpled piece of clothing, every sign of the catastrophe that had unfolded. I had managed to handle the immediate crisis, saving my parents tens of thousands of dollars, but the emotional wreckage was harder to quantify. Tyler had left to give us privacy, but not before squeezing my hand and promising to check on me later. That small gesture of kindness felt enormous in the middle of everything else. Dad stood up from his chair, his movements slow and heavy like he had aged a decade overnight. "We need to tell the guests," he said. "They'll be waking up soon, expecting a wedding." "I've drafted a message," I said, pulling it up on my laptop. "I can send it to your email, and you can forward it to everyone on the guest list. It's brief and doesn't go into details." He read it over my shoulder, then nodded. "This is perfect. Thank you." Mom had moved to sit next to Brooke on the couch. Brooke was awake but silent, staring at nothing, her arms wrapped around herself. Every few minutes, fresh tears would slide down her face. "Honey," Mom said gently, "you should eat something, or at least shower. It might help you feel a little better." Brooke shook her head. "I don't want to feel better. I want to disappear." "You're going to get through this," Mom said, but her voice lacked conviction. I stood up, my back aching from being hunched over my laptop all night. "I need coffee," I announced. "Anyone else?" Dad nodded. Mom did too. Brooke didn't respond. I went down to the resort's restaurant, which was just opening for breakfast. The staff looked at me curiously, probably wondering why I was up so early, looking like I hadn't slept. I ordered 4 large coffees and some pastries, then sat at a table by the window while they prepared the order. That's when Brandon's mother found me. She swept into the restaurant like a cold front, her expensive outfit immaculate, her hair perfect despite the early hour. She spotted me and made a direct line to my table. "You're Selena," she said. It wasn't a question. "I am," I said warily. She sat down across from me without being invited. "I want you to know that my son is devastated. He made a terrible mistake, but he's suffering for it." "He should be," I said flatly. "He was about to marry my sister while in love with someone else and having a baby with another woman. He deserves to suffer." Her lips thinned. "Brandon is a good man who made some poor choices under pressure. Our families were supposed to form an alliance. His father had business deals riding on this union. Your sister was going to benefit enormously from marrying into our family." "My sister was going to marry someone who didn't love her," I said. "That's not a benefit. That's a prison sentence." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "Your family will regret this. We have influence in this community. We can make things very difficult for your father's business connections." "Go ahead," I said, meeting her gaze. "My father will survive. And frankly, any connection that requires sacrificing my sister's happiness isn't worth having." Her face flushed with anger. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "And you have no idea who you're threatening," I said calmly. "I'm a senior software engineer at one of the largest tech companies in the world. I make more money than your son probably ever will. I have my own connections, my own resources. And I have zero tolerance for people who think they can bully my family." She stood up abruptly. "This isn't over." "Yes," I said. "It is." She left in a fury of expensive perfume and wounded pride. The barista brought my coffee order, looking impressed. "That was intense," she said quietly. "Family drama," I said with a tired smile. Back upstairs, I distributed the coffee. Dad took his gratefully. Mom sipped hers slowly. Brooke accepted hers but didn't drink it. "Brandon's mother cornered me downstairs," I said. "Threatened our family with social consequences for breaking the engagement." Dad's head snapped up. "What did you say?" "I told her to go ahead and try," I said. "I told her we didn't need their connections or their approval." Dad stared at me for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he smiled. "That's my girl." The words hit differently than they would have a week ago. They felt earned, real. Over the next few hours, we dealt with the remaining logistics. Guests started checking out of the resort, most of them confused but polite. A few closer family members stopped by to offer support to Brooke. My Aunt Sandra, Dad's sister, hugged me tight and whispered, "I always knew you were the strong one." By noon, most of the chaos had settled into a dull, exhausted quiet. Brooke had finally showered and changed into regular clothes. She looked fragile but more present. "I need to talk to Julia," Brooke said suddenly. We all turned to look at her. What? Mom said. Julia, Brandon's girlfriend, the mother of his baby. I need to talk to her. Brooke, that's not a good idea, Dad started. I need to, Brooke insisted. I need to understand. I need to know if he ever loved me at all, or if it was all a lie from the beginning. I don't think she owes you anything, I said gently. Brooke looked at me. Maybe not, but I'm asking anyway. We found out Julia was still working at the country club. Brooke insisted on going, and I insisted on going with her. Mom and Dad stayed at the resort, too drained to argue. The country club was quiet on a Sunday morning. We found the events manager, who reluctantly told us Julia was in the staff break room. Brooke walked in with me behind her. Julia sat at a small table, eating a sandwich, her name tag pinned to her uniform. She looked up when we entered, and her face went pale. I'm not here to yell at you, Brooke said quickly. I just want to talk. Julia set down her sandwich. Okay, she said quietly. Brooke sat across from her. I sat slightly behind, giving them space but staying close enough to intervene if needed. Did he ever love me? Brooke asked, her voice breaking slightly. Julia looked down at her hands. I don't know, she said honestly. Maybe in his own way. But he never stopped loving me. We dated for 4 years before his parents made him break up with me. They said I wasn't from the right kind of family. That I was a waitress with no prospects. That he needed someone who could help his father's business. Brooke nodded slowly, tears starting again. When did you get back together? 6 months after he started dating you, Julia said. He called me one night, crying, saying he had made a mistake. We met for coffee. One thing led to another. I'm not proud of it. I knew he was with you. But I loved him. I still love him. And the baby? Brooke asked. Julia's hand moved to her stomach protectively. 12 weeks. He knows. He promised he would leave you and we'd be together. But then the wedding got planned so fast, and his parents were so involved, and he kept saying he just needed more time. Why didn't you tell me? Brooke asked. Would you have believed me? Julia asked, simply. Brooke sat back. Probably not, she admitted. They looked at each other. 2 women who had been caught in the same man's weakness, his inability to stand up to his family or be honest about what he wanted. I'm sorry, Julia said. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I am sorry you got hurt. Me too, Brooke said. I'm sorry you've been stuck in this situation. I hope he steps up for your baby, even if he couldn't step up for us. We left shortly after, Brooke cried in the car on the way back to the resort. Not angry tears, but grief tears. Mourning not just the relationship, but the version of herself who had thought expensive weddings and social status were what mattered. Back at the resort, Brooke went to lie down. Mom and Dad sat with me in the main lounge. I don't know how to thank you, Dad said, for everything you did last night, this morning. The way you handled that woman, taking care of the vendors, being there for your sister. You saved us, Selena. I didn't do it for thanks, I said. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Still, Mom said, we owe you more than we can repay. You can repay me by actually changing, I said, by treating me like I matter, by seeing Brooke clearly instead of putting her on a pedestal, by being real instead of keeping up appearances. They both nodded. We will, Dad promised, starting now. And surprisingly, they meant it. 2 months later, I stood in my kitchen in Seattle making coffee on a Saturday morning. Rain pattered against the windows, the kind of gentle Seattle rain that felt like home. My phone sat on the counter, and I watched as a video call request came through. I answered. Brooke's face filled the screen, and I was struck by how different she looked. Her hair was simpler, no longer the overly styled perfection she used to maintain. She wore minimal makeup, but more than that, her eyes looked clearer, more present. Good morning, she said, smiling. How's your weekend going? Pretty quiet, I said. I have some work to catch up on, but nothing too intense. You? I'm good, she said. Really good, actually. I wanted to tell you that I got accepted into the counseling psychology program at State. Full scholarship based on my entrance essay. Brooke, that's amazing, I said. And I meant it. I'm so proud of you. Her eyes got a little shiny. Thanks. That means a lot coming from you. I've also been volunteering at a women's shelter, helping survivors of domestic abuse navigate resources. It's hard work, but it feels meaningful in a way my old job never did. That's wonderful, I said. She took a breath. I'm in therapy twice a week now. Dr. Martinez is helping me work through a lot of stuff. Not just the Brandon thing, but deeper patterns. The way I used external validation to avoid looking at myself. The way I treated you. All of it. How's that going? I asked. It's painful, she admitted. Seeing yourself clearly, seeing the harm you've caused, it's brutal, but it's also freeing. I'm learning who I actually am, instead of who I thought I should be to make other people happy. We talked for a while longer. She told me about the man she had started seeing, a teacher she met through her volunteer work. They were taking things slowly, focusing on genuine connection rather than superficial compatibility. She told me about her plans for the future, goals that were hers alone, not borrowed from what she thought success should look like. After we hung up, I thought about the journey we had all been on. The wedding that never happened had been the catalyst for something none of us expected. Real change. Real growth. My parents had visited Seattle twice more since that first trip in October. Each visit was better than the last. They asked questions about my work, my life, my hopes. They listened when I talked instead of waiting for their turn to speak. Dad had started sending me articles about technology and programming, trying to understand my world. Mom called just to chat, not to ask for anything or talk about Brooke. They had also started going to therapy individually, and as a couple, working on the patterns that had damaged their relationship with me for so long. The change wasn't perfect. Sometimes they slipped into old habits. But they caught themselves faster now, apologized more readily, tried harder. The following week, Tyler flew up to Seattle for a long weekend. We had been dating for 4 months, navigating the distance between Seattle and Sacramento with video calls, texts, and monthly visits. He fit into my life easily, met my friends, explored my city with genuine enthusiasm. On Saturday night, we had dinner at my favorite restaurant in Fremont. Over wine and pasta, he reached across the table and took my hand. I've been thinking, he said, about us, about the future. My heart picked up speed. Okay, I said. I know we started in the middle of chaos, he continued. And I know long distance is hard, but being with you is the easiest thing I've ever done. You're brilliant and kind and real in a way that makes me want to be better. And I'm falling in love with you. I'm falling in love with you too, I said, the words coming easily because they were true. He smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had first drawn me to him. I don't know what the future looks like exactly, but I want you in it. However, we can make that work. We'll figure it out, I said. Together. Walking home through the Seattle streets that night, hand in hand with Tyler, I thought about the life I had built, the condo I owned, the career I had fought for, the family relationships I was painstakingly repairing, the new relationship that felt like it might be something lasting. I had spent so many years hiding my success, afraid of my family's judgment, their jealousy, their ability to diminish what I had achieved. I had made myself small to avoid their smallness. I had hidden my light because I didn't trust them to celebrate it. But the confrontation at the wedding, as painful as it was, had forced everyone to face the truth. My parents had to confront their failures as parents, their favoritism, their cruelty. Brooke had to face her privilege, her superficiality, her part in our broken relationship. And I had to face my fear of being truly seen, my habit of shrinking to fit others' limited expectations. The truth had shattered our family's comfortable illusions. But from those shattered pieces We were building something new, something more honest, more real, more loving. Success you hide to avoid judgment isn't freedom. It's just another prison, one you build for yourself with bars made of fear and shame. Real freedom comes when you live authentically, when you stop making yourself smaller to make others comfortable, when you stand fully in who you are regardless of whether others can handle it. The people who truly love you will rise to meet who you really are. They'll grow and change and work to deserve a place in your life. And the people who can't or won't, the ones who need you to stay small so they can feel big, those people were never meant to stay in your story. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your family is the truth, even when it shatters their illusions. Especially when it shatters their illusions. Because only from that honest foundation can you build something real. I learned that being the disappointment in someone else's story doesn't make you a failure. It just means they were reading the wrong book. I wrote my own ending, built my own life, created my own definition of success. And it's better than anything they could have imagined for me. Better than anything I could have imagined for myself, when I was that scared girl working 3 jobs and believing I would never be good enough. The wedding that never happened gave me my family back. Not the broken, toxic version that had caused so much pain, but a new version. Still imperfect, still learning, but trying. Actually trying. Thanksgiving was different that year. I flew home to California for the first time in 5 years. Brooke picked me up from the airport, and we talked the whole drive to our parents' house. Real conversation, sister conversation, the kind we had never had before. Dinner was smaller, quieter, just the 4 of us. No performances, no social media photo ops, no pretending. Dad said grace and specifically thanked God for second chances and the daughter who gave them one. Mom cried a little. Brooke squeezed my hand under the table. "We're not perfect," Dad said, looking at me directly. "We're still learning, still working on being the family you deserved all along. But we're grateful you're giving us the chance." I looked around the table at these people who had hurt me so deeply and were now trying so hard to heal. Family is complicated, messy, painful, but it can also transform if everyone is willing to do the work. "I'm grateful too," I said, and I meant it. So here's what I want you to take from my story. Don't hide who you are to make others comfortable. Don't shrink your success to avoid others' jealousy. Don't make yourself small, because the people around you can't handle your bigness. Live fully, achieve boldly, and if the people who are supposed to love you can't celebrate that, then the problem is theirs, not yours. Sometimes you have to walk away from toxic relationships, even family ones. Sometimes you have to set boundaries and protect your peace. But sometimes, if people are truly willing to change, willing to do the hard work of growth and transformation, second chances can lead to something beautiful. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be celebrated. You deserve relationships where you don't have to hide your light. And if you're not getting that, it's okay to build a life where you are. It's okay to prioritize yourself, your growth, your happiness. It's not selfish. It's survival. I built a life I'm proud of. I did it on my own terms, in my own way, without permission or approval from the people who spent years telling me I wasn't good enough. And now, finally, I get to enjoy it. Fully, without hiding, without shame. I'm free. And freedom feels like standing in your truth, owning your success, and refusing to apologize for being exactly who you are. That's the lesson. That's what I learned from the wedding that never happened, and the family that finally learned to see me. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever hidden parts of yourself to avoid judgment from family or loved ones? Have you ever had a moment where speaking your truth changed everything, even if it was painful at first? What would you do if you were in my situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me more than you know. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and feel less alone in their own struggles. And if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I share stories every week about resilience, family dynamics, personal growth, and finding your way through difficult situations. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's hiding their light, who's making themselves small, who needs permission to stand fully in who they are. Sometimes we all need a reminder that our worth isn't determined by others' inability to see it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. I hope my journey from invisible daughter to successful woman living authentically gives you courage for your own path. Remember, you are enough, exactly as you are. Your success is valid, your feelings matter, and you deserve to be celebrated, not hidden. Take care of yourselves. Keep growing, keep shining, and never, ever apologize for being extraordinary. Until next time.